also to say, well, we touched on this in earlier episodes and we touched on this in the past, but that kind of like cheating in a casual game with friends is like a very asocial thing to do. It comes down to you're going to get reported by customers. It's going to become a bigger problem, and you might be asked to leave. Either temporarily or permanently. But that's I think especially in a casual environment, like there are much deeper layers that go into this problem.
I like talking over people.
Well, that was a point where you tried to talk over Dylan. It's pretty bad.
Yeah.
So
I was like, oh.
yeah. It's okay.
Yeah.
I have no aura.
Yeah, it's true. Yeah, trampled over.
Hey everyone, welcome back to From the Vault. We are back here at Vault Games. I am Dylan, and I'm joined by
Trent. Hello again.
And
welcome
behind
everyone.
The production desk back there, we have Teddy.
This is the production desk?
Apparently.
What else?
I'm here to help.
Produce.
Yeah.
Thanks, Teddy. Today's discussion we're going to have, I think it's a pretty important one for stores, particularly if you're a new store owner or a store owner that's just pushing more into the more competitive side of card games and miniature games. We're going to be talking about cheating.
Yeah, and even just, I think if you're on the YouTube space, so if you've been like around, there's a lot of discussion happening at the moment around just not just cheating, but like rules discussion. And with all these new games coming out and getting bigger and bigger, and there have been a lot of, I've seen some recent docos and recent other podcast members talking about this kind of stuff. I thought we'd have a chat about it.
Yeah. So we're going to chat about cheating today. The main things we're going to do is like, what is cheating? Obviously, cheating is a very loaded word for a lot of things. What are kind of like some examples that we've had of cheating and some famous examples. I think also we're going to cover what you should do if you encounter cheating, if you're both a player and a store owner or event organizer. And then probably also go into like ways to prevent cheating. I know that's like sucks to like be like, this is how you can stop someone else from cheating, but there are a couple of tactics that you can take that will help you kind of mitigate the opportunity for cheating to happen. So yeah, well, let's get into it. First of all, what is cheating?
Well, first of all, if you're watching at home on YouTube, make sure to hit that little subscribe button. Let's start with that.
Hit the subscribe button. Let's do the thing that we should be doing.
Should be doing.
Subscribe to the channel, get the bell on and get notified every time a new video goes live here on From the Vault. If you're listening on Spotify, click the follow button. And feel free to comment down below how you deal with cheating in your store or your play space, or things that you do to mitigate the chances of people cheating, or even if you just want to chat about like ridiculous cheating stories. Put them all in the comments below. We love to read them. We're there every time. But yeah, so begin. What is cheating? Do you want to start? You want me to go?
Yeah, I'll kick this one off. So let's start with the basic, obvious meaning of the word, which is that basically breaking the rules, whether it be to benefit or the lack of benefit to yourself, but maliciously and actively breaking the rules of a game, usually to benefit yourself.
Yeah.
So
that key there is maliciously, right? So as a like I've been a Magic judge. I believe you've been a Yu-Gi-Oh judge as well. Yep. And I've been a Star Wars Unlimited operator, event like PQ operator as well. So technically a judge on that as well. The big thing to understand is the malicious part of it when it comes to cheating. There's gameplay errors do happen. People do make mistakes. People do draw extra cards. People forget a trigger. Like that happens in a game. It will always happen. You can't stop it from happening because we're all human. We're all going to make these little mistakes. The key to cheating is the intent behind it. Did that person make this gameplay error to benefit their chances at winning this game?
Correct. And again, why we mention things like judging and such as well is that, maliciously, actively, the words we're using here, but how systems are designed to interact with cheaters that also will negatively impact those who don't maliciously or actively make these mistakes. Like, what is seen as making a mistake to some looks like cheating to others, and game systems, comprehensive rules formats will interact with those who make mistakes with the same, I guess, kind of subjugation that they use on those who cheat. You know what I mean? It's like, if you're the kind of player who's just making fundamental game actions that aren't correct, you're going to be treated with the same extent of the law, I guess, as someone who's trying to abuse those rules in order to cover those players who are abusing those rules. So, it doesn't, I guess, what's the term I want to use here? It doesn't
absolve someone for making a mistake.
Correct, but it also doesn't, what's the what would it-
I think the real difference between them is you'll get like a game loss or a DQ. So you get a game loss or a match loss if you're making a gameplay error, and then if you're cheating, that kind of extends up to, well, you might end up just getting DQ'd from the event. You might get banned from the
Correct.
game or the store altogether. So that's the real difference. Is you're still going to get punished if you make gameplay errors in a competitive level event, because
correct.
you shouldn't be. You're meant to be really good at the game at this point. But if you're doing it with intent, then your punishment is going to be much harsher.
Usually because there's consistency.
Yes.
Like
I do think that it is really important to interject here. The dictionary definition of cheat is not only act dishonestly or unfairly, but also in order to gain an advantage.
Yeah.
So mistakes that result in plays that make you lose are not going to be punished.
Well, that's the thing, right? So when we talk about the dictionary definition of cheating, it talks about only to benefit yourself.
Yeah.
When we talk about the definition of cheating, in games like card games, miniatures games, etc., that's not necessarily true. This can also be like, for example, you'll find that players will get warnings for not recognizing if their opponent cheats. That's the thing that happens all the time in card games, where it's important that we're getting into the reads here, but it's important that both players will track the game state and both players are paying attention to what's happening on the board. So if your opponent gets to a point where they've cheated a couple of turns ago, or maybe like a couple of actions ago, or maybe a whole just turn cycle ago, and you come back to it now and go, oh, hang on, you couldn't have done this thing because ages ago you cheated earlier or you made a mistake earlier. If a judge were to come over and interact with that situation, because they might have to, they're going to give you a warning as well.
Yeah.
Because it's up to both of you to maintain the game state. It's like you're playing the same game as they are. If they're cheating in front of you and you're watching what they're doing and you're letting it happen, well, there's got to be some kind of...
I think that's the imperative there, to maintain the game state.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, absolutely.
And and I should say that when it comes to cheating, it's not necessarily always black and white if a gameplay error happens, and that's why the intent label is put on cheating, which does mean that it carries some form of like investigation by the judge or the tournament operators, all that kind of stuff as well. So you are required to investigate further before saying outright, you're a cheater, banned from the event. Like, you need to make sure that this is a genuine... You need to see if this is just a genuine gameplay error or a case of cheating.
Correct. And a point here is that if it's a genuine gameplay error and those players receive a punishment for that, some kind of reprimand, well, they're not going to do it again.
Yeah.
That's a hard lesson.
To do it again,
Well, they're unlikely to do it again. In the case where they do it again, and again, and again, which by consistency it comes up, I want to say doesn't discriminate. That's the term I wanted to say earlier, what I was looking for, where it's like the system doesn't discriminate between making mistakes as much as it does cheating. Either way, you're going to receive some kind of punishment, because it's also trying to eke out those that are making gameplay mistakes. Because if you get punished for something, you're probably not going to do it again if it was an accident. If you're doing it on purpose, you might find more secure ways to do that, which kind of leads us into the kind of next point I want to get into as we wrap up what does cheating mean. Breaking cheating up into two different subsections, which is hard, what we're going to call today hard cheating and soft cheating. Something that's like, cheating is cheating. It's a pretty black and white term. Cheating is cheating. You're trying to win the game. You're going out of your way to not play firmly to the rules and to get an advantage, right? In this example. Well, something that is really hard cheating would be to say, for example, stack your deck in a card game.
Yeah.
You go to shuffle your deck up. You look carefully at the cards as you're flicking through them. You're looking down, looking back up, distracting your opponent with conversation as you flick your cards.
Yeah.
Getting to the point where you don't let your opponent cut your deck, which is something that card players will interact with, putting it down and going, draw your hand, start going through what you're doing. Your opponent goes to say, oh, can I cut your deck? And you could say something along the lines like, I'm not worried about it. There you go. I'm not going to cut your deck. Do you care? They say, oh, I guess not. And then you keep playing.
Yeah. And there's also bringing loaded dice
to a game of
Warhammer, to a Warhammer tournament.
A great example. Yeah. Bring in loaded dice, that kind of stuff. These things are like really hard cheating. Soft cheating, for example, would be like your opponent misses some kind of mandatory trigger. We talk about that, maintain the game state. Your opponent misses some kind of mandatory trigger that would negatively affect you. You watch them do this. This can be something in the case of like your opponent in a game of Warhammer or something, is even though they've actively engaged with your rule, they are playing directly into that rule. Like say, for example, you have a 6-inch bubble, an aura, or some kind of ability around a model that your opponent may or may not have interacted with yet. They, forgetting about it, make an illegal play into you. say they moved too far and they shouldn't have, right? In any form of these games, it's important that you interact with that. You say, hey, this is going to happen. This is bad. This is going on right now. You can't do this for whatever reason. But you let that happen so that later on you can either, in the case of a card game, maybe you can call a judge over, get them some kind of game loss because you've seen this kind of thing softly happen. Or you can, in a game of like Warhammer, for example, these auras I talk about, you could be like, okay, well, now that thing is resolved, I'm going to use this ability without warning them first or engaging with that space where you're like, hey, we should know this thing's going to happen.
Yeah, kind of pulling a fast one.
Kind of pulling a fast one. People, they call those in Warhammer games or any kind of skirmish games usually gotcha abilities. They usually call them gotchas. And gotchas are considered a form of soft cheating in the sense of like, while I think hard cheating is something that's easily identifiable as cheating, soft cheating is something that may not be immediately identifiable as cheating.
It kind of sounds like soft cheating is along the line of like, almost like a social engineering thing.
Yeah,
where,
almost.
Like, you have, if you're kind of doing a soft cheat in the sense of like doing the gotchas, it's, well, my opponent had the chance to read my codex and my list.
Exactly. In the case of card games, it's like my opponent had the chance to read their cards. They should have known that's how that worked.
That brings to mind an example that you've brought up recently about a Commander game you were playing with a friend and they were playing The One Ring.
Yeah, it's actually a really good point. Shout out to my boy Rourke, if you're watching. A good example of this is, there was an example. I played a game recently where my opponent, they had tutored the One Ring to their hand using I think it was like Fabricate or something. And we were all prepared for the One Ring. We all know it was coming. And he slams a card to the table and he goes, I slam a ring. Slams it to the table. I'm like, all right, cool. I look at this secret layer card that's like hyper foil. It's like crazy looking card. I'm like, all right, cool, negate that. One in the blue, negate it. It's like turn 8 or turn 9. He looks at me and goes, cool, puts it in the bin. A turn cycle goes around and he then casts the One Ring. And we're like, the whole table's like, yo, what? I'm like, wait, no, hang on. How'd you get that back? Did you regrowth it? Like, what'd I miss? It's like a storm deck. I'm like, what'd I miss? He goes, no, I never cast it. I'm like, no, what? And I look over at the table and my other mates is like, yeah, we all saw you cast that. And I was like, yeah, no, I'm not crazy. You're gaslighting me about this. Like, I'm sure. And we look at the graveyard and Soul Ring is in his graveyard. And he goes, yeah, I cast Soul Ring and you counted it. I was like, no freaking way. He goes, what do you mean? Like, wait, so you said I tutor Ring and I cast Ring, right? You meant I tutored the One Ring and I cast Soul Ring. And he goes, yeah. I'm like, and then when I negated on like turn 8, when you had like a billion mana, I negated Soul Ring. You thought I was really interested in stopping you having 2 mana with my negate. He goes, well, I thought it was weird.
Yeah, it kind of seems like not to reuse the same word before, but like intent matters in that sense. Like you intended to counter the One Ring
clearly
when he played it, and he played on that intent.
Yeah, and I'd like to add, I don't want to imply directly that my good friend here was directly cheating. I don't know if that's an example of like maybe like a soft cheat in that situation. But it does kind of ring that, and there would be easily that example could happen with people who aren't as close friends.
Yeah,
and that dialogue would start around like, well, put your Soul Ring back. I'm not negating that. But you did negate it. It's X, Y, or Z. So I can see that. It
definitely sounds like something that you do as a cheeky thing around friends.
Yeah.
But you don't do that when you're doing like a Commander night.
Yeah. And it seems like a cheeky thing as well, but I want to make it clear that like I don't know if that, I don't want to imply that was directly my boy cheating. But it is a funny example where it kind of does feel like it'd be an easy way for a player to soft cheat to kind of make that implication.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So that's a good example of that too. But they're the kind of 2 major points of cheating, and I want to touch on that because it's like you have to interact with these things a little differently, right? Yeah. If you're a store owner or if you're a TO or if you're a judge, you do have to interact with things a little bit differently because what can be, seen as cheating when there's like I'm bad with words today. I'm so sorry. It's a bit nebulous.
Yeah.
On like what the cheating is. If it's cheating, if it's not, then it's complicated. When it's hard cheating and it's like, no, clearly that's not correct. Clearly that's wrong.
Well, then let's take this then, because that brings up a really good point when it comes to like dealing with cheating. From a store operator kind of level, and I think we can move into that now. Where conduct like that idea of, again, we go back to that word of intent to cheat, like intent to make a gameplay error for advantage. When it comes to dealing with it as a judge or a tournament operator or a store, is that you need to basically conduct an investigation.
Mhm.
You need to figure out, did this person intend to do that, right? Did they miss a trigger? And look, yeah, actually, you know what? I think I can say, here's a couple of things to look out for when you make that investigation as well. Like this is something that's kind of important that you should know if you're ever doing any form of judging. And Trent, feel free for you to throw in some questions as well, because we have completely different worlds of judging. Like I don't know anything about Yu-Gi-Oh! And Trent knows enough about Magic gameplay and a rough idea of judging and game rules as well, without going through the whole course system that they used to have for Judge Academy.
Yeah.
So we'll have different terminology and different questions we'd want to ask throughout those processes. So when it comes to like figuring out, did this person cheat? Let's say someone's made an error in the game state and they've yelled out judge and you've come over, right? Which, first of all, kiss them on the cheek, because people calling judge is really helpful. We talked about this at the last episode. Yelling out judge. If you're watching this as a player, just call out judge anytime there's a gameplay error. Call out judge. Put your hand up. A judge is there to help you. Then what you need to do is you need to determine, like, did this person cheat? Not always. People don't always go out to cheat. I find.
Can I stop you here? So let's get into quickly. We're getting into the discussion of now, what are the steps?
Yeah.
Right? So the first step, right, when you get this judge call, right, before we even talk about who's cheating, so I'm interjecting it, but before you talk about who's cheating, it is, what is the play in front of us?
Yeah, determine the gameplay error.
That's the
first step. To play the game, determine the gameplay error. One of the things you need to notice for is, who is the gameplay error advantageous for as well?
Absolutely.
Like, a lot of times, I want to preface this by saying, not every time, but I find that most times, if someone makes a gameplay error to their detriment, there's not intent behind it. It's literally a forgotten thing. Like it, and a lot of times you'll just issue them whatever is on the tournament rules pack for if you're doing a Magic tournament that is called the MTR. It's available on the Magic website. Very important if you're a store owner to know that. What's the Yu-Gi-Oh! Like infraction procedure? The MTR and the IPR, is the infraction procedure regulations, I think it is.
Yeah, for Magic the Gathering.
For Magic the Gathering. Those are the two documents you need to know.
In the Yu-Gi-Oh! Like judging process, it's actually part of the comprehensive rules document.
Okay, so
you'll actually be all in the comprehensive rules document.
Yeah, it's in the comp rules for Riftbound. I think it's in the comp rules for Star Wars Unlimited as well.
Correct, because they updated that document to one big living document.
Yeah. Well, I think there is also a Fantasy Flight tournament rules. I don't know what Frontline does for Warhammer.
Frontline?
Is it Frontline that runs the ITC stuff?
Yeah, Frontline Gaming.
Yeah.
I think Frontline Gaming has its own like procedures as well. I'm not sure what the acronym is for it.
There's like an ITC infraction procedure guide.
Yes. But I also think when it comes to...
That's for running like really high-level competitive Warhammer events.
Correct. And also with Warhammer as well, I think it's... the nature of a game that doesn't have its rules in front of it, like the nature of a game that has like...
There will be errors.
There'll be errors. And those, I think, judges are more about just... It's okay. It's much stricter when there's an infraction, but infractions are much rarer.
Yeah.
Like in the case of like, the answer is in front of you. Say, for example, there's a dispute on how far away a charge is going to be, or is this unit in combat right now?
That is actually one good thing I got to give to Warhammer players. A lot of times, the infractions come up. The gameplay errors are resolved before they happen.
Exactly.
Kind of thing. People don't move and then go, oh no, I messed this up, get a judge. A lot of people have these questions about, can I do this? And it'll be like scenarios upon which they're trying to plan out their turn. And that's when a judge comes over and it's like, am I doing this right? Is this going to resolve correctly? Because this is my assumption. And if the judge agrees with that, then they'll make their gameplay movements. So the gameplay actions.
Yes. In the case of like Warhammer, when there's like something comes up post game, which I'll get into an example of this actually. When something comes up post game, it'll be determined by the TO. And that'll be determined kind of like how, like it'll affect the points total of the game.
Yeah.
Usually it's either like a demeanor of a certain number of points on the winner, but sometimes it'll be like they'll just even out a game, they'll tie out a game, or they'll give a full victory to another player. This is always weird because obviously this is true about any card game, any vintage game, any competitive game really. In a Swiss form of tournament structure, if one player gives the opponent like a huge points value win through an infraction, through like a demeanor, all of a sudden that player, their Buchholz, or like however you want to look at their tiebreakers for that tournament, have now been effectively fundamentally changed. Like players they versed are going to have a higher resistance against other players and be pushed up in the bracket because they've been beaten by somebody or beaten somebody who's now scored a full like 100-point game, or in the case of a game like a card game, they might have just scored like a 2-0 sweep. So where that could have been like a 2-1 or for whatever reason a tie. So yes, obviously that player should have won. Well, obviously that player, the player who cheated should have lost is more accurate. But it's also hard just to go, well, I'll just give you like a full 100. In the case of Warhammer, a full 100-point win, the other person gets 0. It's like, well, a 100-point win changes a lot of stuff in the Swiss, so it became very hard. So it's important that these tournament structures, these judging and infraction structures do exist. Yes,
very important. And now to go back to that, what happens when you get the table? You check to see what the gameplay error is. The next step is to just gain information from the players. If the gameplay state is like at a point where the tournament rules will tell you how to fix the game state.
Correct.
A lot of times it's usually like a rewind. It usually happens only 1 or 2 steps after something has happened, so you can safely rewind back.
They use that term like reversible.
Yeah, reversible.
Almost all games will call it a reversible game state, which means that you haven't nothing the infraction has not caused so much changes in the game state that we can't go back. Yeah. Right? Like information has not been presented to players they shouldn't have, and they now have to forget that information, for example. Like if that starts to happen, it becomes irreversible where you can't go back.
Yeah. So that's pretty good. The goal is to fix the problem and get the game moving again. Again, we go back to, the gameplay errors happened. Has the gameplay error benefited the person who did the gameplay error? So they forgot a trigger to sacrifice something that they control in a Magic term. Then that's when you got to do like a quick check to see if there's intent behind it. I find a lot of judges keep reports on events. So if you have a judge team, I know for Star Wars Unlimited, I keep an entire infraction report for an entire PQ event, so that you can place players in. You can say what infraction they were, who dealt with the infraction, any other notes around that infraction.
Yeah, how it was dealt with.
How it was dealt with. This is really important for coming back later in the event to find out, has this infraction happened with this player before? You can have a quick look to see if it's the first time they've been called.
If it's a historical infraction.
If it's a historical infraction, essentially, if today they've made that infraction already and they're doing it again, then you've got a flag. You've got a red flag. So now got to ask a couple of questions to people around, like, hey, did this happen? Why did this happen? What could you have done to prevent this from happening? These kind of things. And this is where you kind of sit in a little bit of a gut area a lot of times. It's really hard to logically determine whether or not someone has cheated unless it's really blatant.
Yeah, which I think will rarely be blatant.
Rarely blatant. I will explain one that we've had at the store years ago. That I'll explain that shortly when we get to some examples where it has been very blatant and it was quite easy to deal with. But you got to make that a quick investigation, and obviously if you can't determine that someone's cheating, you probably shouldn't accuse them of it. It's quite a dangerous thing to label someone as a cheater for their reputation if they're not cheating.
You kind of do have to take every case by case scenario.
Yeah,
it's hard. It's kind of paradoxical. You have to take things in a vacuum because it's a new situation, but that context will, unfortunately, you're a human being. It's going to affect your decision making, and sometimes it's important that you let it affect your decision making.
Yeah, exactly.
Because and this will be the difference between. I think when it comes to the at table judge call, like when you're at the table and you're like, I'm resolving this infraction, you take it in a vacuum and you say, this is this example. Once that game is finished, or when you have a moment, you can then utilize this opportunity to be like, well, let me find out if this is like a problem.
Particularly if you're reporting that into a system. That's where the system is quite good. By the way, if you want an infraction recording tool, just let me know in the comments, and I'll if enough people want it, I'll throw it up.
Yeah, they can use it as well.
I think it's quite an important thing to have.
Yeah.
And you should be, every time an infraction happens as a judge, you should probably jump over to it. That's why I prefer like Google Sheets. I give a Google Sheet link to my entire judging team. They can put their input infractions on their phone straight away.
Yeah.
After it happens, so that they can get back to judging and we can move on and keep that documentation. The important thing is when those infractions are then written, you can kind of get an idea of, is this person on this history list already? That's when you can start snowballing that investigation to find out if that person's cheating. And again, like I said, it comes down to gut. do you feel that this person is cheating? Well, we need to figure out like why. You can put someone. The next things you do from that point are kind of determined by how intensely you believe they are cheating. If you think they're cheating and you need to spot a gameplay error where it's likely to have cheated, I would recommend putting a floor judge on watching them. I have had to do that once before at a PQ because there was a few things that I saw on a player that I looked a little bit sus. So I had a floor judge. It was in a top 8 scenario as well. So I had
For the non-Australian viewers, sus is suspicious.
Oh yeah, sorry. For the colloquialism of Australian, sus is suspicious. A player did something quite suspicious in a game, so I did get one of the floor judges to watch them for the entire next game. Yeah, and that floor judge actually wrote down every play that player did so that we could review it.
Yeah, and again, I think the best thing you'll see there is like when the floor judge is there watching that game, and it's convenient in top 8. I think that you have the opportunity to do that. And again, it's probably going to be in the higher tables because the players who really want to win are the ones that are cheating, I guess. You may not actually find that there's another infraction. Yep. And it's fine because, again, your goal is not a witch hunt.
No.
We're not trying, the goal is not, I think this person's cheating. I need to make sure I catch them in the act so we can get them and stop them from playing.
Kick out as many people as possible from my store.
Yeah, exactly. No. It is simply, I don't want these infractions to happen. And if somebody watching them over the game stops it from happening, that's resolved.
It's probably like one of the things that I think I really enjoy about that judging side of stuff is it's more about compliance than it is about punishment.
Absolutely.
If you think someone's cheating and then they play properly when someone's watching them, in like at least in the top cut, that's okay. You can then like know that at least they've made through the rest of their top cut properly, like they've played correctly the whole time. In saying that, definitely put a note on any tournament software you have about that player because you're going to need to watch them if they come back. If you believe that they are a regular cheater. But yeah, and then when it gets to cheating, then you follow the rules of the tournament procedure, infraction procedure guide, all those kind of guides that are out there. I know personally, as a store level, we have our own kind of separate policy to infraction procedures. Infraction procedures usually say if someone's caught cheating, DQ from the event. That's it. DQ from the event. Like Magic used to say, one of the judging things for Magic was usually like do a DQ report into the judge system so that then they probably end up getting their DCI banned. But that doesn't happen anymore.
What does DCI mean?
DCI is the I don't remember what it was specifically for.
I couldn't remember I know what it's for, but I can't remember the acronym.
I don't know what the acronym is. It's basically like the identifier for Magic the Gathering.
If you have like a Magic account nowadays for like Arena, and you have like if you've used the Magic the Companion app, it used to be known as DCI.
Yeah.
Which was like you had like a little number and you kept it in your wallet. And that was the system that you would sign up for, and that was like your like your Konami card for Yu-Gi-Oh back in the day.
Yeah. And you got points and
and the same thing, and player rewards. And also it was like you'd have like a resistance, like a number attached to your account that would then denote how your first rounds of Swiss and such would go in. I'm not sure if this is true about DCI, but this was true in Konami cards. For Konami cards, you would have what was known as your resistance. So if you did really well in events, you'd have like an MMR, like a matchmaking rating, which would attach to your account. And then when you would go to big events, it would affect your Swiss.
Yeah. That's pretty cool, actually.
Yeah, it's pretty interesting. It's not around anymore.
So yeah, we have our own like separate policy too, is that for Vault, if you are caught cheating in a paid event, this is the key thing. Cheating in a non-paid event just kind of sucks, and we'll let you know that it sucks. But there's nothing really on the line when it comes to that. So we'll just say, hey, that sucks. Don't do it again. And obviously, if someone's a bad sport in the community, they naturally get pushed out of the community as well. And
also to say, but we touched on this in earlier episodes, and we touched on this in the past, but that kind of like cheating in a casual game with friends is like a very asocial thing to do. It comes down to you're going to get reported by customers. It's going to become a bigger problem, and you might be asked to leave. Either temporarily or permanently. But that's I think especially in a casual environment, like there are much deeper layers that go into this problem.
Yeah.
It's not just as simple as like, oh, you cheated in a game, we hate you. It's probably like a larger issue as well. Like definitely that's a big problem, but there's a lot of layers that go into that if you're going out of your way to fudge dice or play cards wrong in friendly games with friends.
But for us, if you cheat in a paid event, you are banned from every Vault Game store for 6 months. the first time it happens, a year the second time it happens, and permaban the third time.
Yeah.
We thought that kind of like balanced the policy out because we are also people who believe in reform.
Well, that's why you guys have the rules of play before it gets to cheating.
Yeah, absolutely. We have the rules of play, which are available on our website, boardgames.com.au, that basically just says like, hey, don't be a dick, in a nutshell, in much nicer terms. But this policy also, like, one thing that I found is like a lot of times cheating is, I would say, like a crime of the moment.
Yeah.
It's not always, I've come in today with the specific intent to cheat and I'm going to cheat my way to the top. That happens. That happens at events. And the biggest cheaters in the world that you see the YouTube videos about, that those are the kinds of people that do that. But most cheating that I've encountered is come from like crimes of opportunity, right?
You've been pushed to the point.
Yeah.
Is this a good segue into
an example?
Crimes of cheating that you've encountered?
Crimes of cheating. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Let's go into the crimes of cheating now. Examples that we've had. We have banned someone from cheating, for cheating in the store for 6 months. That happened in our store championship Dominaria, where we did a draft, and this person was in the top 8 cut. So it was a second draft, top 8 cut. And it turns out that they were just past every perfect green-black Sapperling card out of the set. And the one card that never came to them was Slimefoot the Stowaway. So Slimefoot the Stowaway is the whenever a Sapperling dies, opponent loses 1 life, you gain 1 life. I think it's each opponent loses 1 life, you gain 1 life. And 4 mana create a Sapperling. And there's a lot of cards in the Dominaria set that keyed around Sapperlings because that was like
he was like the signpost uncommon.
He was
for
the
the draft
signpost uncommon
archetype.
for the draft archetype. Yeah, this player never got a Slimefoot in the draft, and during the deck building stage of the draft, after the drafting had happened, a player pulled me aside and said, "Hey, there's a guy there building his deck that has a Slimefoot in it. I don't remember seeing one going around in the draft, and he was rummaging around in his bag before he started deck building." So we paused everything, including the deck building, and we got everyone to, and how we resolved it is we got everyone to count their cards because you know how many cards come out in a draft.
Yeah.
It was this is the time where there weren't dual lands in the land slot, so we just threw out the land. So I think it was like 14 times 3, which was 42. Did I do that right?
Yes.
Yeah. 42 cards. Everyone had 42 cards except this one guy had 43.
Yeah. And there you go.
There we go. So as we were counting the cards, once we said, "Everyone count your cards, please," he pulled me aside and said, "Yeah, it happened." And this was really like, I spoke to him about it. The whole thing was absolutely, yes, it was a momentary thing. It was, I got past all these really great Sapperling cards, and I didn't get the one card that actually makes the whole Sapperling deck work. So he's drafted an entire Sapperling deck that is just missing one of the key pieces.
Yep.
And it really came a thing of like, oh, I just wanted to play this. I'm so like, it was an opportunistic moment because he got that Slimefoot in the first stage draft during the Swiss rounds. So he had it. It's just, unfortunately, it was that moment.
But that's a very clear example of a very easy way to tell. We were able to count and we were able to see you had an extra card. There was intent there. You did something actively.
Yeah.
And we caught it, and you caught it fast enough. And that's the thing that I think is really important because it would have been very easy for this person to pull a single common out of their draft pool had it gotten a round or 2 in.
Yeah.
A card
Had they thought about that?
Well, obviously had they thought about it, but also, again, and maybe that's part of this whole crime of opportunity where it's like, I'll just throw this in. Nobody will check. Why would I even bother taking a card out? Because it's not like I'm premeditating it. If I'm premeditating it, or the hindsight 2020 of my example here, it's like, I'll just take a card out. Problem solved. Like, how do you solve that issue? And maybe that's the question. It becomes like, let me ask you then, how would you have solved the issue had he have taken a card out of his draft pool?
Had everybody had 42.
Had everybody had 42. We just wouldn't be, you wouldn't know.
I wouldn't know.
Yeah.
I wouldn't know. I think I can't, I can't think on it now, but I'm sure there would have been a way for us to have a chat and figure it out back
Clearly.
then.
I think so.
And that's also the other side of it. If you're judging, be malleable on your practices. like figure out like the best way. Also, you figure it out the best way to. You need to have a plan for what is the best way to figure out if someone's cheating, but also in a non-disruptive way.
Absolutely.
That gets the thing moving forward. So the problem was we did have to stop the deck building portion of the draft, but we stopped the timer. It only took us 5 minutes to determine that this guy was cheating. And then even then as well, as we started determining the cheating, he pulled me aside to confess, which is another big thing for me as well. It's really good. Like props to the guy for admitting it. I think more cheaters. I think if there was a way for us to downgrade cheating like punishment, still have the punishments
when people
there,
come clean.
but if people come clean about it, like there's an opportunity there to go, okay, well, thank you for telling us. That makes our job a lot easier, and saves a lot of problems for everyone. Which, who knows? I think that's the benefit of having such a community-focused store is that even when people cheat as a crime of opportunity, they go, oh, shit.
Yeah,
I know I messed up. He knew he messed up too. Like, don't get me wrong. Like, I felt that this guy was really genuine about like just losing his cool over it.
But, I wanted it so bad.
Yeah, I wanted it so bad. And what was on the line? A playmat.
Yeah.
Like it wasn't that big of a prize thing. But he got kicked with a 6-month ban straight away. I said, cool. All right. Well, what you need to do right now is you need to pack up everything you have. You need to talk to Andre, a friend who was a registered judge at that time, so that we can get a DQ report in, and you're going to leave the store for 6 months.
And it feels harsh, but you have to do it.
Have to do it. That's the rule.
Because that's the policy. And it doesn't discriminate as well.
Yeah,
that's
exactly.
You can come forward and explain this to us, but that's the nature of how it goes.
Well, and that's why the policy can't discriminate.
Yes, exactly. Exactly. And that's true about any kind of judging system, I think.
So yeah, that's why that example is why the policy is set up the way it is. Because, this guy was a regular drafter. He was actually, quite enjoyed by the community. Like, I wouldn't say he was like absolutely loved, but he wasn't hated. He was like, he was the guy that came in on Friday nights and partied around with everyone, had fun, and didn't win everyone. It's the same thing as always. If it's a community of players that enjoy the game, you'll find that it's not always the one person always winning, unless everyone understands that one person is really good at the game. But yeah, and he came back after 6 months. He didn't play in here anymore. I think he actually got out of the entire hobby because of that, which is unfortunate. But
yeah, but that belies like if he's wanting it that bad, maybe he needed some redirection.
Yeah, and I think that's exactly part of it, where it's like, it's very, very, I guess, responsible, maybe is the word for it, where it's like, you're like, this is not good for me, like mentally. Like, it's not good for me emotionally.
Yeah, but I mean, we're not therapists. Like,
clearly. Yeah. But I think that's just something that you, comes to terms with. But then again, it might just be guilt. You never know. Or maybe it just turns out, hey, it's not my game. But
that guy didn't come in like with the intent to have the rules wrong.
Correct.
Like he came in with like his own thing. Like, intent to bring in the wrong rules would be like bringing loaded dice, and then when people are investigating, try to flush them down the toilet.
Yeah. Which
that's a classic one.
That's a classic one. I think we actually pulled that up. Do you remember what the event was?
I don't know. It was somewhere in the UK.
There's a UK event.
Flushing toilet dice.
Yeah, just look up loaded
toilet dice Warhammer, and I'm sure you will find the example. But it came up, what was it, like late 2024?
Yeah, it was
I think it was. I want to say it was about 2 years ago. And they actually.
So what's the Warhammer version of this incident?
This is the Warhammer version.
Yeah.
Yes, I'm looking at Reddit.
Oh,
A Warhammer cheat tried to flush the evidence July 2023.
2023, maybe it was a little bit early. Yeah. That sounds correct. You'll actually find that the
there's a photo of the dice in the toilet.
Yeah.
Yes, but they've also put those dice in a framed picture above the toilet. Do you know that?
Yeah.
And it's like they've done that for
the
like now in those toilets, they've got the weighted dice in a framed picture, which is such a good way to kind of be like, it's almost like a we know. It's like a very infamous.
This article is full of innuendos. Cheating is a shitty thing to do.
It is.
It's duplicitous garbage.
Duplicitous garbage. There's some random examples.
I actually got another example too that I actually put this question up in the industry Facebook group that I run for Australia and New Zealand. If you're interested in joining that as a store owner, board game retailers of AU plus NZ, join it. But one of the guys in there actually.
Can you repeat what you said? Board game
the board
retailers.
game retailers of AU plus NZ. One of the store owners in there put in an example they had when it actually came to RPGs. So we had an incident recently during our D&D Adventurers League where a few players addressed concerns of a game master fudging dice rolls to make it harder on an already small group of players. Now, first of all, if you're a GM fudging dice rolls to make it harder, yikes. Like, I'm GM and I fudge dice rolls, but I fudge dice rolls to make sure that my players don't die.
I don't know. I don't know. I think if it's Adventurers Guild or Adventurers League, or like if it's like a paid event where people are paying to interact with the game in a certain format, I'm like, no. You don't fudge rolls at all.
Don't fudge at all.
But I don't know. I've fudged rolls as a DM to make it. I've had things like
What happens behind the screen stays behind the screen.
I've had players like strike me with the force of 1,000 suns.
I actually used to roll in front of the screen when I originally ran Star Wars D20. Used to roll in front of the screen, and we just let wherever the dice rolled, wherever they landed, that's what happened.
I think both these examples are very valid.
But yeah,
I'm
anyway,
not invalidating that.
Back to this. I actually caught this game master in the act fudging rolls and adding stats to an already powerful monster. Told him to pack it up, and that from now on, if he volunteers to GM again, he will need a shadow from one of our senior volunteers. Gave all players max rewards for the module and told the GM it was his first warning and that if I see him do it again, it'll be his last.
And I think that when you have players that you're not personally invested in, like you're not personal friends with. Oh, sorry, this keeps going?
There's more.
Oh, my apologies. Go ahead.
There's more. Cut a few weeks later after the Dice Fudger... cut a few weeks later, the Dice Fudger is being a player. Gets caught out by a GM for fudging rolls. Gave him final warning and all his rolls must be done in front of a GM at all times now. If he continues to act up, he will no longer be welcome at Adventurers League. That's interesting.
See, that's interesting. I think Adventurers League is the closest you're ever going to get to competitive Dungeons & Dragons. The closest you're ever going to get.
There's a few fan-made modules out there. There's like the arena.
Okay, no. I mean, in the context that we speak as
of
a
organized
organized play.
Yeah.
So I guess that's a better way of putting it. The best you're going to get close to organized play Dungeons & Dragons. Players, when you have organized play, everyone has the same expectation.
Yeah.
The dice are going to land the way the dice do. In the same way that you can't, you're not going to play a game of Warhammer and say like, but my Catan Shard of the Nightbringer is so cool, actually. He like maxes out his damage because he's just so cool. And this is a big moment for him. He wants to kill 2 Rogaldorns. He's going to max out his damage. That's not a thing that happens.
You can't rule of cool a Warhammer game.
Correct. And you can't rule of cool, I believe. I philosophically believe you're not going to rule of cool in an Adventurers League game because that's kind of an organized play game.
Yeah.
And you're not emotionally invested in these people that are your players. They're not your friends necessarily. You can be friendly to them and they can become your friends, or maybe one of them or 2 of them are your friends because of the nature of the seating. But they're not by definition your close friend group where you get away with that. If you can never apply the context of like buy me a beer and you can have a reroll. If you can never apply that to a game, you can't fudge rolls for any reason.
Can't fudge rolls.
But as a DM, people I've had somebody legitimately wave a biscuit in front of me, like a Tim Tam for those at home, and be like, come on, man, it's the last Tim Tam. It was the last in the packet. And they were about to eat it. And I was like, all right, have a reroll. I only like chocolate, but it was very funny. And it gave the boys a good laugh. So we let them have the reroll. Like, if you can apply that in the context.
40% off at Kohl's.
Whoa. If you can
we're not promoting them.
True.
Cut that. I just got genuinely excited.
Yeah, look, if the Coles, Woolworths, Duopoly want to sponsor us, they need to sponsor us. Good.
Okay,
yeah.
Google, Wikipedia, Tim Tam, Image, Mark, keep going.
Okay, thank you.
Perfect. So yeah, that's an interesting outcome. I definitely think fudging dice rolls in an organized play perspective for RPGs is pretty dodge.
Not on.
I still believe Rule of Cool kind of stands within reason. I think even for Adventurers League, I think everyone's here to have a good time and enjoy the atmosphere. The reward system for Adventurers League is pretty set in stone as well. So you're not unless you're getting max rewards every session, your character's not going to be overpowered. Like you're still playing within your level.
Exactly.
Also, everyone's stat lines are using the array when they build the characters rather than rolling for it. So everyone's kind of on a pretty even playing field that doesn't fluctuate too much. I think Rule of Cool can still stand. Like my big thing with RPGs is if you can make a good story, who cares what the result is? But in saying that, if you're making a hard monster harder for a group of players that you're not friends with, like you're not like outright no, you're in an organized play setting for, dodge.
I know, but I think it's just like you kind of started. You made a good point. I think you kind of tickled my brain when you said, "Oh, and every player is like standard array," and I'm like, "Yeah," because the whole format's standardized.
Yeah,
Adventurers League, I think, in my opinion, is the also. And I guess is actually what I meant to say when I said competitive. What I actually meant was gamified Dungeons and Dragons.
Yeah.
It's gamified Dungeons and Dragons. It's dungeon crawling. It's get rewards. It's more like playing Diablo, but it's set up in this RPG experience. And you can have character moments, but many are not there for a role-playing game like diplomatic or even social experience in that respect. You know, it's part of like, we're here to play a cool game that's played with dice and such, and we're playing it like we would play a game.
We have one social RP encounter, and we have 1 or 2 combat RP encounters, and 1 to 2 skill check encounters, and
Correct.
then that's it.
And those are all puzzles to be solved mathematically.
Yeah.
They're not like environments. Like when I listen to like Rhiannon, our events manager here, when I listen to their Dungeons and Dragons stuff, like they played the same campaign for, I want to say, like over a decade now. It could be longer. Could be less. No, it's gonna be longer. Point is when they talk to me about their sessions and their little campaigns and such, and they I should say little campaigns. Sorry,
Yeah,
a bit rude.
they're little campaigns.
They're little campaigns. That's what I mean to say.
Tiny 10-year.
They're tiny 10-year campaign. No. Sorry, I misspoke there. I should say when I say little campaigns, I mean they're micro sets. This is like
with miniatures.
No, with miniatures. No, I mean to say like they'll have one shot style of things. They'll have like small mini, not done, whatever. Anyway, my point is they'll tell me stories of their gaming, and it's very abstract compared to Adventurers League. It's very story driven. It's very character driven. It's awesome. It's exciting. And that's the best part about Dungeons and Dragons and playing with close friends and such. They have these impactful character moments that have gone over 6 years and such.
Yeah.
And those don't exist in Adventures
Social
League.
and emotional explorations.
Absolutely. And they don't exist in Adventures Guild, I don't feel. Adventures Guild reminds me a lot of like playing Baldur's Gate 3. I guess any of the Baldur's Gate games, but especially when you talk about like modern like 3, because a lot of people who are listening have probably played that game. You know, it's like starting the game, immediately re-kitting Shadowheart to have command. So she can command to drop the great-sword from the demon.
And getting
the great sword. You know, like I played a game recently and I commanded. I went like Gale and like Astarion. I made like one of them went like invisible, and then I commanded the Githyanki guy in like Act 1 near the Red Dragon to drop his sword, and then I went invisible and walked over and grabbed it. It's gamified. It's like this doesn't make sense. Like,
how can I make the most optimum thing happen?
It's like I talk about
optimum.
Even like a good example of this I think is let me think, spike growth.
Yeah,
where you drop a big area of spike growth, and then it goes to all the enemies' turns, and in a game
they all run through
and they die because it's gamified. They're not in a social setting.
The AI, no,
exactly. And I guess in Adventurers League, you would kind of also expect that situation to come up where, yes, to an extent, the DM's going to be like, well, they're not just going to like kill themselves or anything like that. But, you know, the logic is different. So for me, I go, yeah, that's definitely a no-go. It's standardized. It's gamified. Play the game properly.
Yeah. Okay.
That's how I feel. I think that's actually an interesting one because you would actually kind of think that as at a store level, like you just wouldn't get cheaters in RPGs. That's kind of interesting. I'm glad that's kind of interesting insight.
Because like that was from Jay at Epically out at Ipswich.
Amazing. From Ippy. Explains a lot.
All right.
I didn't mean that. I'm sorry. If you're from Ippy, I didn't mean that.
We would love to talk about famous examples of cheating, but we could go on forever. So maybe that becomes a whole nother video where if you want to do stuff, let me know and we can set up a recording thing. And
yeah, we can.
You can just audio record you talking about cheating. We do a script and
call to action. If you want to see it,
subscribe to the channel, hit follow, get the bell on.
Yeah.
Trent might release a video in the future about famous cheaters in games.
Oh, yeah, in games.
In games.
Yeah. Nothing to do with the files that have been dropping recently. Nothing to do with that. Those cheaters.
Might have to cut that one. But I think we found the bit where
here's the line.
I think we found
put that at the start of the episode.
That's the opener. So we've had a discussion about cheating. What is cheating? We've talked about some of the examples we've faced and what some people online have faced. one of the key things we should probably impart now is what to look out for when it comes to cheating. You know, we've experienced a lot of these games where we found cheaters. We've experienced a lot of games where people do cheat, not necessarily in front of us. So I think there's a few things that we can talk to about what you can do from like a player perspective or a TO perspective or a judge perspective of what to look out for if you believe someone would be cheating. Obviously, the first thing we mentioned was repeated gameplay errors.
Yes, I'd like to actually start with what I think is more important. Let's start with preventative stuff.
Oh yeah, preventative stuff.
I think catching them out is good, but I think we talked about quite a bit too. But I think preventative is what I want to talk about. Where it's like, let's talk like
how do you mitigate the opportunity for people to cheat?
Exactly. So there's a few things to talk about. Let's start with a card game standpoint.
Yeah,
there's some simple stuff. Track things like hand count. Ask your opponent how many cards in your hand. This is not just important for cheaters; it's also important for your own gameplay understanding and knowing how many options they can have and doing the math. You'll find a lot of good players will consistently ask how many cards in hand, or they'll just constantly be looking at your hand, looking at the numbers of cards in there. This is not because they think you're drawing extra cards, but that helps avoid that.
That's a really good thing to look at the rules for whatever card game you're at. They usually have a section on what is considered public information.
Correct.
Public information is information that you have the right to know and your opponent cannot obfuscate.
Absolutely.
So
That's a good example of that.
Yeah. They need to tell you, like, for instance, if we look at Magic, public information is number of cards left in deck, what cards are in your graveyard. Graveyard order used to be a thing, even though it's still a thing, even though very few cards care about graveyard order now.
No, but it also tracks the game. It tracks the chronology.
Can track the chronology of the game, yeah. Life totals, cards in their hand, number of cards in hand, not what those cards are, but number of cards in hand.
Games will treat differently if you've seen a card. Like if they tutor a card to their hand, we use that term tutor, but to add a card from deck to hand, and they have to reveal it to you. Say, for example, in Magic, it's find a creature card, reveal it, put it into your hand. Make sure you double check on your comprehensive rules with how long that information is available to you. In apps like on Magic the Gathering Arena, it will just always be revealed in their hand at all times. But in competitive events, there is a line where you can no longer ask and you must just know at some point.
It comes down to what level of game you're playing at as well. Like
correct.
In Friday Night Magics, if someone knows a card that I have in my hand, like they physically know that I've revealed it, a lot of times I will just do the arena thing and flip it around for them anyway. Like that's just about consideration.
Same thing about the Commander. People do that in Commander too.
Yeah, card games. So understand public information. Yep. Don't be afraid to call judge.
Correct. We talked about that one earlier.
That's a very important thing. Judges are there to help you. Don't be afraid to bring. That's for any game, not just card games. Judges are there to help you.
Correct.
Board games. If you're playing in the Catan tournaments, just call a judge if you think something's like been played wrong. It's that simple. And if it's been played wrong, we'll fix it. We'll tell you that actually it's been played correctly. In either way, you've learned something.
Correct. I think another ad is be, it's the kind of thing like be the kind of person you want to see in the world, in the sense of like be a good example of these things. For example, when you're done shuffling your deck, you pass it to your opponent to cut.
Yeah, that's
you
actually...
open that dialogue. You pass your opponent to cut the deck. That way, when they hand you their deck, you've already made that assessment. You've already been like, I'm going to show you my deck. If they decide to gentleman's game it, they're just like, whatever, I don't cut, tap your deck, whatever. Just cut their deck. Cut their deck anyway.
That's a really big thing. That's one of the mitigating things for card games is cutting the opponent's deck after randomizing. A lot of card games have in their rules, like you have to present a sufficiently randomized deck to your opponent, and then your opponent can randomize it themselves. Sometimes that means you can shuffle. A lot of times people just cut the deck at a certain point, so that mitigates anyone trying to land their top 7 cards, like their first card draw. In saying that, there's quite a few good examples online of a certain cheater who shuffles in a way that pushes everyone's lands to the top or the bottom. That video is out there. Go look at it to learn about that one. Very interesting. The way that works, the problem with that kind of cheating is if you hand a randomized deck to an opponent and they do that kind of stuff to it, there's actually no point in the gameplay cycle where you can randomize again without calling a judge. So again, back to calling a judge.
In that situation, you can do that.
Yeah. Write down life totals for both of you, by the way. Don't just write down your life total. Manage, like record your opponent's life total as well. There will be errors at some point, but it actually makes a very handy track for a judge to come along and backtrack game actions as well.
That's important. I was going to say, don't use a dice. Don't use an app. Write it down. Write down, because as you will check those numbers down the line, you'll see mathematical errors. You'll see what went wrong.
Yeah.
Another one is like if you're not talking about card games, this is true about games like Warhammer, etc., any kind of dice game, roll your dice openly on the table, bring the dice tray over to your opponent, roll into a dice tray in front of your opponent. Do it right next to them, right at their person. Do not roll your dice into a ruin. Do not roll your dice into terrain.
Try to avoid rolling dice on the game table itself, like the actual play space.
Correct. Don't roll dice near miniatures. That's a big one. They might knock miniatures.
Are there usually like rules around having a dice tray?
No.
Not at all.
No. So most high stakes events will actually offer the dice tray. It'll be part of the table's like formatting. But like you'll come to a table of terrain and there'll be a dice tray on it.
That's usually sometimes a lot. Well, if you're ever playing on a feature match, there will be a dice tray.
Correct.
As well, because that's better for camera.
Correct. So that'll get resolved. But no, not something. In fact, there are famous cheaters out there as well. There was a famous Death Guard player. They got in trouble. These things are crazy to me because they always happen on feature matches. And for those at home, feature matches are recorded, streamed matches that people are chatting and watching real time, that judges are privy to that information. And chatters,
are recorded.
And are recorded. Chatters, let me tell you something.
Chatters are great judges.
Does not matter how many judges are in a room. 10,000 people in a Twitch stream. Yeah, they'll catch it first. They'll catch it first, Peter Chang. They'll catch it first.
I mean, in the PQs we had for
Star Wars
Legends of the Force, I believe was the PQs we did. That was our first one we streamed, and there was a point in time where the chat was like, that looks sus. So we went back and had a quick look and made sure that it was fine, and we let everyone know in the chat that it was actually okay.
Yep.
But that was actually a thing, was like, we don't let the judges read the chat stream, but we will notify judges if we need to.
That's accurate. But again, it's like there was a situation, a Death Guard player, where back in the day, poison, the keyword poison on their weapons was you would reroll once to the wound roll. Pretty good ability. Very useful. Well, he was rolling his dice into a ruin where his opponent couldn't see them, and he would just grab every single failure and just re-roll them. And he'd just say the word poison and roll all his dice again. And people caught on this pretty quickly. These chatters caught on really quickly. And, that person was reprimanded. They got in a lot of trouble.
Yeah.
But just don't do that in the first place.
Yeah, designate a place to roll.
And the thing is that this is the thing as well, present it first. Present yourself as this player who's going, I'm not a cheater. I'm not implying you're a cheater. We're just having a gentleman's agreement that we're not going to cheat, and we're going to just prove that to each other.
Yeah.
Which is that simple. It's not about, some people think
touch
that
gloves before boxing.
Correct. It's like, when you're not necessarily implying anyone's going to cheat by doing this. It just resolves that problem. It just shows, hey, I've not stacked my deck, and here's evidence to support that statement. Problem solved.
Yeah.
It's that simple. That goes for anything.
It's that openness and consideration when it comes to a game.
And it does, it just kind of, again, your opponent, I feel, will A, respect that. They'll appreciate that, cheater or not. And also B, it does socially force them into the same kind of dialogue. Because if you were to, like, imagine a situation where you show your opponent your deck, like, hey, can you cut this? They go, oh yeah, sure. And then they go to start their hand. You're like, can I cut your deck? They're like, no, it's not going to happen. That situation is not going to happen, right? Because that you've presented that yourself. You're like, well, I did that. Why can't you? It's part of the rules.
Well, speaking of Warhammer stuff before as well, like, having a dice tray is really important. I think one of the big things to do if you're a Warhammer player, and look, I understand that this won't work for everyone because there are people that have accommodations at tables. But I think moving around the table is really important when it comes to a Warhammer game. If you're in one spot, if you're sedentary in one spot for the entire game, your opponent, there's a chance for your opponent to have things that you won't see. So just by, moving around the table a bit, chatting to your opponent and moving around and getting views of the battlefield from multiple angles, at whenever you have the opportunity is really helpful. It's helpful from a gameplay perspective because you won't get caught out by models hiding in ruins.
I've been there.
As a Tyranid player in Combat Patrol with an all Lictor squad, I even caught myself out once.
Yeah, I've definitely played against Custodians, and I've been like just not aware of that little tiny little Sisters squad. Their Sisters Silent squad, like in the corner of a gigantic L ruin. And I'm like, and I'll say to my opponent, like, so how big is that warden? And I can see the sweat dripping from their foreheads. They're like, yeah, he's pretty tanky. Yeah, you can kill that guy over there. And like looking down at their sister squad, I'm like, hang on a second. Let me lean around that table.
Move around the table a bit. It also, combine that with the dice rolling in a tray. If you are rolling on the table, moving around the table a lot can actually help mitigate any issues people have with dice landing in spots that are unseen. Like if you keep moving around, you're going to see where those dice are landing as well. I know what I do if I'm rolling on the table instead of a dice tray is I will actively move the dice in a way that, like, I'll really make a show of moving dice in a way that doesn't cause it to roll.
Mm.
So, like, I will start with my fingers like this on the dice. Like, I'll show that it's going down on the dice and then move it.
Yeah,
So
makes it clear
I
visually.
make it very clear visually that my dice is moving. I'm not re-rolling the dice or changing the face as I'm moving it across the table. So yeah, and then again back to the age old thing. If you see something sus, call a judge. You know, if someone's dice are rolling sixes a lot, then call a judge.
Yeah,
because they may be loaded.
You never know. You never know. So yeah, I think there are lots of ways for you as a player to engage with this. But I think, yeah, it always comes down to just, be honest with yourself and make that clear to your opponent. I think this goes to like a lot of things. Like we talk about soft cheating. This could be a huge dialogue by itself. I'm not going to get into it now, but in a game of like Commander, we talk about the Rule Zero conversation. Yeah. Like there's an easy form of soft cheating that you see all the time in those big events where, people they'll talk about bracket systems or they'll talk about the win point of their deck or whatever. And the dialogue becomes not necessarily honest. And that's a form of soft cheating too. It's it's much easier to win a game if you make out that your Slimefoot deck is like a bracket one. Like it's all about like the Weatherlight crew and rada. And all of a sudden you win with like a Ashnod's Ultra Infinite combo and you go, oh, well, I never see it. So it's like not really a bracket 3 or it's not really a bracket 4. But, I mean, I don't like the bracket system for that reason in general. But my point being is, be honest and open, because if you're utilizing that as a way to win Commander games, people will know that. People will start to recognize it, and they'll start doing the same to you.
Absolutely.
And if it does the same to you as it getting back to you, maybe that starts to work on other people in their games, and maybe more people adopt that. And all of a sudden, you've got a community of people who just are never honest in these Rule Zeros and just want to have like pub stomp games all the time. And this is a bit of a slippery slope fallacy, but my point being is that if you don't want to see something, don't do it. If you present yourself in a certain way, people present themselves way back.
That actually plays into a really good kind of like gameplay, a gameplay like system that you can use when playing minis. It's something that I've adopted since I was playing War Machine back in the day. It was intent. It's discussing intent, right? I intend to move these guys in a way where they can see you, but they are covered by the ruins, right? When I move them, when you're having that discussion with your opponent, like talk to them and say, hey, because you're in a minis game, you're allowed to ask things, you're allowed to pre-measure, you're allowed to check range, all this kind of stuff right now. So talking to your opponent, say, my intent, by the way, intent comes from a time period where you couldn't do that pre-measuring. So people had to kind of like guess where things go. So that's where they explained intent. My intent is to actually be in cover here and take a shot at these guys without cover. Have that intent discussion as you're playing the game, so that if there's any kind of like rules discussions over, actually your guy is like.
Can I add to this just before we get into that? I agree. There's two layers to this I like to add, just because I've got a lot of experience with like playing by intent, and this can be a double-edged sword as well.
Absolutely.
That the first thing is you don't discuss intent mid-game, you discuss it at the start of the game.
Yeah.
Before you sit down, you say, hey, do we want to agree on playing by intent? And then if they don't know what that means, sometimes players will go, what do you mean by intent? And you go, well, this is what I mean. And you explain that, you say, well, this game can be a little bit convoluted. When we make certain plays, we want to make sure it's very clear what we're looking to do, what our goals are. And then you say, I'm going to tell you what I intend to do and how I do it. And then we're going to resolve it that way. And make sure that the end point of your intended play, both players make an assessment and agree on the intended play.
Exactly.
You don't say, because people have their own interactions with this where you say, I intend to stand behind this ruin and then shoot you out of it or whatever. And your opponent will go, but you don't have the movement to get behind the ruin. And you kind of go, oh, I don't. Or maybe it's like you just move your model and say, I intend for it to be there. It's like, well, you can't just intend for things to be going your way. So it's important that both players watch as the intention happens and both agree. If both players at this point in the game have agreed that we've gotten here, at that point beyond then, this is what Dylan, I think you mean, where it's like, now if we look back on the chronology, you kind of go, hang on, but you can't now just say, I don't have the cover. We both agreed this was
we both agreed that the cover was there.
Correct.
Right?
We both
agreed I was
then
in cover from the squad before it moved.
Correct. So now if you're going to say this has changed now, we need to get somebody else involved.
Yeah.
Or so in the case of event, or by ourselves, discuss this further.
It becomes almost like a vocal agreement log, like a vocal contract log of the gameplay actions in the game.
Well, is that where you guys bring up where the opponent also has the impetus to keep the, what do you call it? The gameplay
Correct.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes.
What's the term?
The games the
The game state.
Game state. Yeah.
Yeah. So it's also on the opponent to keep the game state up and might incur infractions.
correct.
Yeah,
Yes,
exactly.
it's both of your goals, and that's another thing that can happen where it's like you'll find a lot of times in these examples a judge will come over and they will say, player who made the infraction gets a penalty. Player who did not make the infraction but let the infraction get to this point will receive a warning, or at worst case scenario, some penalty as well. Very rarely is it a penalty for that. Almost always it's a warning, but warnings aren't nothing. They stack up to penalties. If they see consistency and all of a sudden all your games against all these different people and they're all making mistakes and you're never tracking it until it gets to the point where it's irreversible and they get a game loss, now it's got this kind of, oh, you're letting players make mistakes. You're actively abusing this system to get them game losses so you can get free wins. Well, now your warnings have turned into game losses themselves. It becomes a whole thing. That's rare.
I can tell you, as someone who plays by intent is really it creates I want to say more open games with your opponent. When it came to when we did the Combat Patrol tournament recently, the downside of Von Ryan's Leapers is that they're quite large and spindly and get caught on a lot of things. And I was versing a player that had World Eaters. Was it the World Eaters?
Like Corn Berserkers?
Yes, it was the World Eaters faction. Yeah, I'm just trying to remember the people I was versing. So the footprint that the World Eaters took up outside of a ruins meant that my models fit into the ruins to fight against these guys, but I physically couldn't put them in there without removing some World Eaters because the ruins was a little bit the gap to put the model in was less than what the model would fit in, even though the model by game rules could walk into there.
You know how you fix that in competitive games? You actually remove the ruin.
You remove the ruin, but you have the footprint there.
Yeah. You just pick up the ruin.
Yes, but this intent meant that I could put these guys on the top level of the ruins, and we know where they're standing underneath that.
Absolutely, which you'll see in other games.
Again, intent, really important, creates more open game states, more open games with players, and it allows you to actually be more involved in the game itself.
And I love that anyway. I love that for a lot of reasons, like just having that on the top floor, but being like, hey, we're both agreeing it's on the bottom floor, is that you're not going to lose that model in the middle of the game and be like, oh, I forgot this unit was here, you or your opponent, because you can see at the top of this floor every time. It also means they're easier just to access and grab and move to other locations.
Exactly. Or when they die.
When they die, not if.
Yeah.
Or when it comes
Von
to
Ryan's Leapers, guys.
They fall apart. But no, so yeah. That's on the point of miniatures games. I think a lot of those, I think what's interesting is that miniatures games, you come into a lot of what we call soft cheating.
Yep.
There's a lot of that in miniatures games.
It's because of that flow chart.
That flow chart. Whereas in games like card games, Magic, etc., a lot of hard cheating. And then it's funny you think about this. It's like what surprises me here. Now this it's an anecdote. It's one example. This RPG example. It's not necessarily every example, but it's funny that the RPG example we got was such a hard cheat.
Yeah,
because it's a dice game.
Yeah,
and it's a lot of rules are not immediately available to you, so it feels.
And it was intentional.
So it feels like that's you think in RPGs you would get a number wrong here or there, and you might just bump by one every so often by accident.
Oh, I forgot to add my proficiency to this check.
Or I shouldn't have proficiency because it's a two-handed it's a second attack.
Yeah.
But I did add it because I just forgot and just add the number again. Or I just said I had proficiency because I did. I have proficiency in that. You don't even check your I have proficiency in survival, sure.
Oh yeah, I added my dex bonus
kind of
to the damage roll, even though I don't have finesse.
Correct. It's I kind of feel like those things can come up, but to be no, I'm straight up just fluffing rolls. I'm just faking everything. It's so funny that is the actual example. And maybe if it was more of a soft cheat, the TO/store owner would have handled that differently.
Yeah.
You never know.
Who knows? Anyway, we want to know what examples you've encountered cheating out in the world of gaming and how you've dealt with it as a player, as a judge, as a TO. Put them down in the comments, both on Spotify and YouTube. We're always in there. We'd love to have a read. We'd love to respond. I think that's pretty much, that's it. That's cheating. Cheating happens.
It sucks. Don't be a cheater.
Don't be a cheater. If you're caught, fess up.
Yeah, fess up.
It's much easier.
And hey, just like we've established, fessing up, just like, when you get your hand caught in the cookie jar at your mom's, it's not going to solve the issue. You're not going to fess up and it's going to absolve you of your guilt, or maybe your guilt, but not of your punishment. But do it. It's just, you're an adult more often than not.
Yeah.
Hopefully if you're watching this, you're an adult. We swore a couple of times, but there's quite nuanced conversations. So maybe you're very bored if you're 8. But I will say that, fess up, be honest. And maybe that's the road to recovery. Maybe it's the road to never playing Magic ever again, as we've established, but maybe it's the road to recovery.
Maybe it's the road to recovery. And if you have any ideas for helping mitigate cheating, or things to do when you're playing games to help prevent people from cheating, let us know in the comments below as well.
We'd love to hear it.
Love to hear it.
If you have any ideas for the next podcast episode, we'd love to hear it. We've already got some ideas jotted down. We've got some, we're kind of locked in for a few now, I think. But we'd love to have them. And if we get them sooner rather than later, we can set them up on the schedule and answer your burning questions / some ideas you might have.
Yeah. And if you want to see more from us or get notified every time a new video goes live here on YouTube or Spotify, click follow, click subscribe, get the bell on and get notified every time a new video does. I think we'll be putting these out as much as we can.
Yeah, obviously. I hope so.
Anyway, thanks so much, Trent. Chatting about
Dylan.
cheating. Thank you, Teddy.
Thanks, guys. It was a very interesting conversation.
Thank you.
And we love interesting conversations here.
We do. Or just any conversation.
Almost as much as we love brown snake ginger beer.
Yeah, born on the banks of the brown snake, baby.
Third episode in a row, please sponsor us.
Yeah.
Can you imagine?